It's time to break open the Week 13 Peacock and Williamson mailbag and which teams in the NFL can win the Super Bowl and maybe which teams really need to in 2023. All that and more coming up right now.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We appreciate all the everydayers out there. Make sure you are one. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Here we go.
All right.
Which teams, we teased it yesterday, which teams can win the Super Bowl this season? And to me, this question it's like the Hall of Fame conversation that we get into sometimes, Matt. I'm a small hall guy. So for me, if you have to talk about it for 10 minutes, then that team is not it, right? We've seen some interesting teams win that maybe you didn't expect, some wild card teams. But I think this year, maybe is parity out in the NFL more than usual? Because I feel like this year, not quite like the 1990s when it was like the NFC Championship was the Super Bowl and you knew it was going to be the Cowboys or the Packers or the 49ers. They were going to win the Super Bowl that specific year. I think this year, more than ever, there's a big gap between those teams that can win a Super Bowl and the teams that probably, even if they're a playoff team, won't win a Super Bowl.
I 100% agree. Now, there's one little issue I want to throw out there because I hate that the word can is in this conversation. Like, I'm not picking on the Browns, but could the Browns defense shut out everyone in the playoffs and the Super Bowl? Could that happen? I mean,
no,
maybe. I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like,
it's not 0 out of 100%. It's
right.
It's 2 out of 100% or 1 out of 100%.
But who realistically are Super Bowl winning possibilities to me? So I pulled up the standings. I just want to go division by division. I don't know what you think about Miami, but I say no. I mean, they haven't beaten anyone good yet. I think they're a little too finesse to win in December in Baltimore or Kansas City. So I'm going to say no to Miami.
This is an interesting one. I think the most
interesting one. Yeah.
The most fascinating teams, I think, are, in my opinion, the Shanahan tree teams in the 49ers and the Dolphins because of the way they've won. And my co-host Eric Crocker on Locked On 49ers put it this way. So we've had some argument with some 49ers fans where we said, okay, they've blown out teams, but when you see them win the close games, and we've seen the Eagles do this time and time again, and it's a feature and not a bug that they can win those close games. The 49ers either blow you out or lost. That's what's happened in all 11 of their games so far this year. And the Dolphins are similar except the Niners have beaten some good teams. Like the Niners blew out the Cowboys, so they've blown out good teams too. But the Dolphins strength of victory is one of the worst of the good teams in the NFL. And the way Croc put it, which I loved, is like collecting infinity stones. And I don't even know what I've not seen that movie or video game, but I understand the concept of collecting the infinity stones, right? It's like you want to see your team collect the most stones, and there's some stones that those two teams have not collected, and I think it's more worrisome for the Dolphins because not only have they not blown out any good teams, they just haven't beaten any good teams, period. They're a warm weather team. They look good at the beginning of the season, going fast, putting up 70 points on teams in 80-degree weather. What are they going to do in 20-degree weather, 15-degree weather against good teams? And we just don't know that yet. So I think I would put them at the bottom of the teams that can, because just because we haven't seen it yet doesn't mean we won't. But that's got to be able to happen. But I'll put it this way. I don't see a reason that Dolphins can't do that. They just haven't shown it yet.
Yeah, they were my hardest one. I mean, I started with the hardest one. It just happens to be where I went to ESPN.com. That's how the rankings are. Boy, it'd be huge for them, though, if somehow they could get home field all the way through or don't have to travel. The number one seed gets bumped off by somebody else, and they're hosting games.
And the Super Bowl is not going to be bad weather, right? Or
right,
anything
right,
like
right.
That.
You could luck out.
Oh, maybe that's another way to look at this. For the Miami Dolphins, they are the most important team to get the 1 seed.
Agreed. I think so. Certainly in the AFC. Yeah. I think so too. Yeah. So here's a strange one. I'm going to say yes, that the Buffalo Bills can win the Super Bowl. I just don't know if they can get to the playoffs.
They can absolutely get hot. No, I'm with you. I love this. And the 8-3 Dolphins might not have a better shot at the Super Bowl than the 6-6 Buffalo Bills, except for the Bills just might not get into the tournament.
Exactly. I mean, they dug a hole. I mean, all their losses are AFC teams. They have a brutal schedule. I don't think they're going to the Super Bowl, and they probably can only lose one more game to do it or to go to the playoffs. But if they get in, look out.
I'm trying to go back to the Dolphins right now because they're 8-3, and all those AFC East teams had the toughest schedules this season.
Mm-hmm.
How they won 8 games and they haven't beaten anybody good yet? Am I missing some games? I want to go to take a look at the actual schedule. They're winning week 1. The Chargers looks worse than it did, 36-34 at the time. They've beaten the Patriots. They've beaten the Broncos. That was the 70-20 game. The Broncos win. You could say it looks better now because they're playing better now, but they were the worst team in the league at that point, and the worst defense in the league at that point. The Broncos were. They lost to the Bills. Speaking of that Bills conversation, and they still have one more to go against the Bills. They beat the Giants. They beat the Panthers. They beat the Patriots.
right.
That is unbelievable.
That's unbelievable. Look at that. Yeah.
That is so unbelievable. Not a good team in the bunch that they beat so far this year. And some of the teams that have played decent at times, they played them at their worst moments too. So like the Giants and the Broncos that have won a couple recently, they played them when they were awful. So that's a fascinating team, the Miami Dolphins. And they got the Commanders coming up. They've
look at the last 3 games.
Titans, the Jets again. So the Cowboys,
Baltimore, Buffalo.
Christmas Eve Cowboys. That's when we really start to see it. Then they got the Ravens, and then they finish with the Bills. So 3 games.
Get weather in Baltimore, probably. Back to our weather conversation.
Yep. New Year's Eve to get battle tested. They got 3 games at the end of the year, and I don't think we're going to get the answer to that until then.
So they're my best can't win it team. They sound like they're your worst can win it team. Fine line. Yes,
it's more of a, because I don't want to say can't. It's the old incomplete that I used to get all the time in college when I was bail on a class. They're the incomplete right now. They're almost in their own category.
I mean, we certainly don't have to agree on these, but do you agree the Bills can?
Yes.
Okay.
We've seen this Bills team, and they're not that different from past teams that also could. Some things have to change. But when you have Josh Allen, the way they're playing some defense recently in some games, they absolutely can, but they gotta figure it out. And they gotta get in the playoffs. They need some help.
So AFC North, I think the Ravens can. I mean, I think we'll probably agree on that.
Yes.
I wish they closed teams out better, though. I mean, like, they've let teams hang around. Like, their loss to the Steelers, the Colts, are games they should close. I think they need Rob Dibble. Yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like Dennis Eckersley.
Yeah, they need a closer. Yeah,
they need a closer. And maybe
Rob
that's
Dibble,
like
that's a good pull.
How about that? Yeah,
a long time back when only 3 guys in the league could throw 100, and he was one of them. Now
he was a lot of them.
He can throw 100.
But they're a yes, right? The Ravens, they could win the Super Bowl.
Oh yes, clearly they're one of the easy yeses for me.
I say no to the Steelers and Browns. They're just no. I mean, their style of play, you got to score points in one of those playoff games.
Yeah, I just don't see it for the Steelers, Browns, Bengals, rest of that division. It's if someone wins from there, it's going to be the Ravens.
What about Jacksonville?
Yeah, that's a good one, because I would say no to the Texans and Colts, who are hanging around at 5, and they could be playoff teams. They're not there right now. The Jaguars is an interesting one, and I'd hope to see more. I think they're not as good as the 8-3 record. I think it's tougher for me. And I neutral field, I would have the Dolphins favored over the Jaguars. And if the Dolphins are a can't or a borderline, then I feel like the Jaguars should be.
I agree. They would be in the same tier, and I would put them as a can't win it yet. But maybe this is the year they learn how to win it. You know, like they kind of like last year, you win a playoff game, go into a tough environment, maybe you knock off Baltimore or something, then you get whipped by the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. And next year we're going, ooh, the Jags could have learned. You know what I mean? Because I agree that they're not as good as their 8-3 record, but I brought their record up too. I mean, besides getting stomped by your Niners, who frankly I think are the best team in the league, they would have a 7-game winning streak. You know what I mean? Like they won 5 in a row before that game, get smashed by San Fran, and then handled their business against Tennessee and beat a good Houston team on the road. Like that's pretty good 2 months there since October 1st.
Yeah, I need that signature win still. Yeah. But I think
Houston was big.
I would say I guess. I think they're pretty close to where Miami is right now. I would bet against it, but yes, for the Jaguars.
Should we figure? I mean, I think the rest of the AFC is easy. Chiefs, yes. No one else in the West.
Yes, correct.
Break and then talk NFC.
Yep. NFC next is I think even more black and white for who can and who cannot win the Super Bowl in 2023, and which of those teams need to win this year, and a whole lot more from the Peacock and Williamson mailbag next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by DoorDash. Man, when I think football, I think food. You got to have your spread ready when it's game time. Did the game go to timeout? Then it's time to order DoorDash. Is it halftime? That's ordering time. 2-minute warning, you got it. That's your cue to order in, whether it's pizza, wings, soda, burgers, or even just the buns that you need to complete the burgers that you're cooking on the grill, because there's retail, there's groceries, restaurants, everything you want for your football Sunday watch party available at your door with DoorDash. That's why it's called DoorDash. They'll dash it right to your door in the quickness. And for me locally, I love the Super Duper Burger. DoorDash that one yesterday. And for our listeners, you can get 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change, terms apply. Don't forget to use code LOCKED23 for 50% off up to $10 value on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and spend $15 or more on the next football Sunday. Think DoorDash. Subject to change. Terms apply. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is also brought to you by PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. PrizePicks is the most fun you can have playing fantasy football this season and winning 25 times your money while you're doing it. All you do, it's super simple. You select 2 or more players, you pick more or less on their PrizePicks projected stats, and you place that entry, and you can turn $10 into $250. And with basketball season here, they got a new combo projections specials league at PrizePicks, so you can combine NFL bets and NBA bets. For example, LeBron James plus Travis Kelce, 10.5 combo points of 3-pointers made plus receptions, and you're in business. Tons of projections for NFL football. Smart if you use the Christian McCaffrey more than on his touchdowns in a game, anytime touchdowns. That's a good bet. Everything
works out pretty well, yeah.
Tons more. Justin Jefferson coming back. That'll be a popular one as well. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL or download the app. Use code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. NFC, which teams can win the Super Bowl? The Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys, the San Francisco 49ers, and that's it.
100% agree. Now, I would put the Lions.
That we've been pissing off the Lions fans so much. I mean, we're going back to the springtime, NFL draft through. In fact, I think our most popular episode was just Detroit Lions fans hate watching it and getting other fans to hate watch it and comment on YouTube about our takes about the Detroit Lions and their offseason and specifically the first round of the NFL draft for them. The Detroit Lions are a good team. They're 8-3 right now. It's crazy to say that they can't win the Super Bowl, but my mind would be blown if the Detroit Lions went through the gauntlet of the NFC playoffs and beat 49ers, Cowboys, Eagles in some combination of games, and then whatever came out of the AFC.
I 100% agree, but clearly they're fourth. I mean, I think there's 3 in the NFC, as you said. I didn't know if you jump on Dallas or not, but I think Dallas can definitely win the Super Bowl. It sounds like you agree.
Yes, I think there's and like the Lions could beat the Cowboys in the playoffs, right? I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying the Cowboys, I could see them getting through a couple of more games, whereas the Lions, they can beat the Cowboys, then they'd run into the Eagles or Niners and
NFC Championship game
right.
in San Fran or Philly.
I just don't see the Lions being there. I think the Cowboys have the opportunity because of, by the way, Dak Prescott. We talk a lot about MVP awards potentially. He maybe should be number one with the way he's playing right now. And they've got,
I was about to say that,
what Deron Bland is doing, adding to that defense that is kind of unexpected. There's a lot of things going right for the Dallas Cowboys right now, top to bottom. That makes me believe more than the Lions, who are just a little bit. I'm just a little bit less confident in what they're doing. By the way, the Dallas Cowboys plus 162. If I'm not mistaken, they've got the highest point differential in the entire NFL right now.
Yes, they do. I was going to bring that up. I was sitting here looking. I was like, wow, 162. That's unbelievable. And
the Bills, the Bills, I think, have set a record for being plus 100 and only 6-6.
That adds up too.
Yeah.
And they have a little bit of Miami to them where good teams have beat Dallas and they destroy bad teams, I mean, obviously. But I think they can win the Super Bowl. I don't think this is controversial at this point, but I think Dak has had the best season of any quarterback in the league. I'm not saying he's the best quarterback. He's had the best season.
He's had a great season. He's limited the turnovers that have plagued him in the past. I mean, he's putting up numbers. He's putting the team on his back at times with the passing game and that offense. Though, now that I think about it, Lions. Okay, so I think this is the best part of the debate because I think we agree on everything else because there's no other teams we're going to add to that list in the NFC. Lions, Dolphins. The Lions are more battle tested than the Dolphins are. They're both 8-3. Neutral field. Who do you like there? If you had to bet on one of those teams to win the Super Bowl, even Dolphins or Lions, which would it be?
Can I rephrase the question? Because I was fiddling with this while you were doing the live read there.
Okay.
I think we agree that there are 6 teams that are, yes, they can win the Super Bowl. These 3 in the NFC we mentioned, Kansas City, Baltimore, and strangely enough, Buffalo, who might not even get a chance. Then I think there's a tier of 3. Lions, Dolphins, Jags. How do you rank them? As opposed, throw the Jags in the mix to your original question. I mean,
I think that's fair to put them in there as well. And maybe that's that tier after, and maybe the Bills belong in that tier too. But I'm more,
right.
I would be less surprised if the Bills made a run in the playoffs than the other 3 teams.
Like, for example, if my Steelers get in and they have to play the Jags, Dolphins, or Bills, the Bills are my last choice. Or if I'm Kansas City,
the team you least want to play against.
Yeah, out of Miami, Jacksonville, Buffalo. I'm just thinking of AFC teams. Like if I'm Kansas City and you're like, one of them's coming to town, I want Buffalo last.
Well, here's the thing. So for me, I would pick Miami because Miami's going to have the home game. So I'll take Miami at home against Buffalo because Miami doesn't have to go to Buffalo or most likely won't have to. So I think that takes Buffalo out for me as well.
Not for me. I think the Bills can win in Miami and might even be favored today in Miami.
Interesting. So you like Bills even more
wild card round. So I like the Bills more than Miami, Jacksonville, Detroit. Yes.
Okay. Then after that, Detroit, Miami, Jacksonville. I think I would go Detroit, Miami, Jacksonville.
In that order?
Yes.
Detroit would definitely be 1.
I would have
because
the Bills
they're good on the line of scrimmage.
I would have the Bills in that tier right now because there's something not working there. There's something weird.
No doubt. I mean, they fired an offense coordinator. They're 500.
Right.
They may not even get the playoffs. And I get all that. It's just Josh Allen.
Sean McDermott like doesn't want to shake his coach's hands after the games. Like there's bad vibes in Buffalo that maybe is an additional thing that wasn't there before. The Stephon Diggs thing this offseason, and then his brother talking about how Josh Allen is trash and he'd be winning some in other places. And the vibes aren't there either in Buffalo, which makes them not as scary, but they could still go on a run. But I would definitely put them in that tier at the other. So those 4 teams are in a tier for me. I wouldn't fight if you put Buffalo at the top of that tier. But I think Miami was ahead of them because they're going to play at home, and I'll take Miami at home over Buffalo.
Okay, so that's where we differ. I mean, I have 6 in the top tier, including Buffalo. You have 5, and I have 3 in the second tier: Miami, Jacksonville, Detroit, and you have Buffalo there.
Yes.
Okay, and then here's a crazy thing, because we know the league is weird. Like it's only November 29th. All these teams still have 5-6 games left, whatever. I could write a believable story that Pete Carroll or Mike Tomlin somehow got their goofy teams into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, more likely
like they're a tier 3, but I mean,
more than likely they're the team that goes and like knocks off the 1 seed or knocks off the 2 seed in wild card weekend or something like that, and then loses. But then you're not that far away once you get past that, right? So
like they're going to be wild card teams. I mean, they would have a tough path, but they get a bounce or somebody misses a field goal or, something goofy in the weather. They win 13-9 on the road.
Yeah. Just like whiteout snow game or something.
Right. I mean, those are the longest of shots. Like I always tell the story because I was a creative writing major in college. Like if I wrote a story and handed it into my creative writing professor, does he tear it up and be like, sorry, this isn't believable enough? Or, okay, I can at least sell it,
How many times you're too creative in school, man?
Yeah, you're a little too creative. Yeah. What were you smoking last night?
Are you on drugs?
Yeah, right. So that's a good conversation. I mean, reality, I think there's 6-ish, but 3 others that are maybe.
Which team needs to win in 2023 next? Let's each pick one of those. We got a question about the Vikings plan at quarterback, Dobbs, Cousins, otherwise in the offseason. And which young quarterback would you rather have over some, between some interesting names going forward for the next however many years? Coming up next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to be as sure as you can that you have as many top-tier candidates as possible to interview and then eventually hire. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many qualified candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours at LinkedIn Jobs. Thankfully, LinkedIn Jobs is an intuitive process, quick and easy for small businesses that have maybe fewer time and resources than some other bigger businesses that might be doing hiring processes. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedon NFL. That's linkedin.com/lockedon NFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So we went through a lot of teams that
I have to hijack this for a minute. I'm sorry. Late breaking news. I don't want to overreact to it, but my phone just blew up. Here's Zach Rosenblatt. I guess he covers the Jets. Aaron Rodgers' practice window is opening. He will practice. Now, that doesn't mean anything. He might just stand there in sweats and throw a football around. But they are opening his window. That gives him 21 days to get on the field.
So 3 weeks for Aaron Rodgers to get on the field as we inch closer to December. This is very interesting. Okay, this does kind of hijack the conversation. But to be honest with you, the Jets were one of the teams, Matt. They're 4-7 right now. They've got they need not only Aaron Rodgers, but a lot of luck. They need the good Lord to help them out along with Aaron Rodgers at 4-7 to get into the tournament and win this year. And I would put them in the mix for those teams. And we had a question here, and we haven't even named any question askers yet today. And shout out to the ones that were asking about who can win the Super Bowl. And I don't even remember who you are, so we talked about it earlier this week. But the question from Joey Bag of Donuts, which team better win big this year or they're in big trouble in the future? Would the Jets be one of those teams?
Close. However, I can paint a picture that Rodgers comes back next year to a team that's constructed similarly to this one, and they have another shot.
Whether it's the Jets or otherwise, because the Jets could be in that, the Jets ownership could say, what the heck was this, and fire everybody too. Robert Saleh could be gone. Maybe that doesn't change things for Aaron Rodgers next year. GM could be gone. That could change a lot, because I would put it more on the GM than Saleh for not figuring out the quarterback situation when you had the entire season except for 4 plays to figure it out.
So, side note, you mentioned, I didn't even think of the Jets getting fired, but Schefter said yesterday that up to 10 teams could have a new head coach. I mean, we always saw 2. So there's a lot you can eliminate that aren't. Maybe the Jets are 1. Maybe. I think that's a long shot, but 10 seems like a huge number. Maybe that's a Tuesday conversation for us.
Yeah, we'll get into that because that is interesting. Or maybe next week, and who knows if one more falls before next Wednesday's mailbag. But that is an interesting one there, and we've had a lot of conversations about that because there's a lot of candidates for coaches to be fired. We've seen multiple head coaches. We've seen multiple coordinators already fired this year before week 13. Aaron Rodgers. So 3 weeks. That puts, looking at the Jets schedule here, sometime before the playoffs, obviously. They've got the Falcons this week. Then they've got the Houston Texans. And then it's the Miami Dolphins. Division game and some games you got to win down the stretch. That, if Rodgers came back in 3 weeks for the Dolphins game, that would.
He's not going to come back this week. He's going to practice probably today, though. He's going to be on the practice field with a helmet on.
Yeah, you don't open the window unless he's able to start doing some, non-contact, whatever, limited practice work. And then, so Dolphins in 2 weeks at Miami, that's December 17th. Then after that, he would have to be activated by the Commanders game on Christmas Eve. Then Browns, then at Patriots to end the season. Let's say they win those 4 games. That puts you at 8-7.
With Tim Boyle?
With Tim Boyle playing the next 2 games. And Tim Boyle, and would, let's say Tim Boyle goes 500, does 9-8 even get you in the playoffs if you win out once Rodgers comes back?
So I'm going to get back to Joey Bag of Donuts' question here in a second, but I bet what happens is we see all kinds of clips of Rodgers at practice, and he looks good, and he's smiling, and he's happy because he's activated. They lose this week and or next week, and then he never plays again this year. Shut him down. Yeah. Okay. It's probably much ado about nothing. So real quick to Joey's question. I think this question stems from the offseason. Now, I don't care where they're at now. It's more how Tampa and the Rams recently pushed all their chips in the middle to win a Super Bowl, and they did, And I think teams that took that approach this year were the Chargers, Browns, the Saints, but they always do, and Bills and Dolphins, because all those teams have major cap problems going forward. They were in it to win it this year. And it's just a great example that most of the time you don't win it when you push all your chips in.
It's amazing how we saw it with the Texans this year. It's amazing how fast you can suddenly be good. We saw it with the Jaguars last year. You get that quarterback coach combination, some things happen on defense, and all of a sudden, this team's good, and they might be good for a long time. And it's also amazing how fast things can crumble. You think, this team's great. They're a juggernaut. And then a year and a half later, it's like, what happened to that team that was a Super Bowl caliber team? And now everything's wrong with them. You get things age quickly, some key injuries, you get too expensive, you get bloated. The 49ers are absolutely one of those teams. I think their window is 2 years still, so it doesn't have to be this year, but after next year, then you got to pay a quarterback, and they have a lot of stars that are making a lot of money, and they're going to have to start making tough decisions. And they haven't had, this is what you see with a delay too. The Niners haven't had a first round pick in 3 years. You don't see that now. You see that in 3 years, right? You see, you see the 3 years after missing out on the pick is when you miss out on the talent there, and they still need offensive tackles and edge rushers potentially in the future because they're not going to be able to pay everybody. They're already paying Bosa and corners and the expensive positions in the NFL. So the Niners are a 2-year window. They need to win by 2024 for sure. So I would say if it was a 2-year question, Niners would be up there. They'll be good next year though.
See, I think that's where the Browns and Chargers are. They're at that point where they have a lot of expensive dudes. They have a really expensive quarterback, and they're not going to win it this year.
Minnesota Vikings. We had a question about Josh Dobbs, and it's a good question. And they could be a team here because they're probably going to be worse next year than they were this year, right? Unless they can.
I don't know. I mean, the more I think this through, especially with his injury, should Cousins just return?
Just one more year, like a 1-year deal or something.
They know more about his injury than anybody else. I mean, because of the injury, all of a sudden, if I'm Washington, bad example because that's where he came from,
right? Maybe
I'm a little less likely to give him 15% more than he deserves. Maybe because of the injury and the age. Maybe the Vikings and Cousins just say, let's run it back, and they draft a guy on day 2 or the first round and see what happens, or find a Trey Lance type.
By the way, Jared's question was, what do the Vikings do at quarterback in the offseason now that the bloom is off Dobbs? And I think we kind of knew what Dobbs was going to be. He's a stopgappy type of a player. He's a backup quarterback.
For sure.
Dobbs probably sticks around. Do you go complete rebuild and go Dobbs, Jaron Hall, see what you got there, maybe even draft another guy to compete, or Cousins? I don't know if there's another savior separate from those guys. Or does Rodgers do the Brett Favrean Jets to Vikings move?
Oh, there you go. Like, I thought they might be a Kyler Murray destination when I thought Arizona was going to get the first pick.
Okay, I'm going to go into to a territory that the listeners don't get to hear about. Some great conversations that happen in the Locked On DMs, and there's a deal being struck right now behind the scenes from Alex Clancy and Luke Braun, the hosts of Locked On Cardinals and Locked On Vikings. Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings thinks the Vikings would be very serious about trading for Kyler Murray in the offseason if the Cardinals decided to draft a quarterback at, say, pick 2.
I say they better end up in the top 2, though. Like, they need the Patriots to win a game. They need Carolina to win a game. So that's why I kind of didn't bring it up, because I don't know that Arizona's bad enough. But, boy, Arizona's coming to Pittsburgh, and I've dug into them. They're really bad. Their defense is hideous.
What about Kirk Cousins to New England if Bill Belichick sticks around?
Yeah, I think that's lipstick on a pig. I think that roster's terrible.
Would you rather stay in Minnesota if you're Kirk Cousins?
Yes.
Wow, no, then you'd rather stay in Minnesota
with Justin Jefferson? Heck yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good offense. They got weapons and Addison and Hawkinson, and it's better than throwing to Juju.
Or Justin Jefferson. Who do you want to throw to?
Mailbag question, right?
All right. We got to end this one here. The unforeseen breaking news of Aaron Rodgers returning to the practice field. Practice window open now for Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. No doubt that's going to be a huge story. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. We've got to make our 6-pack of picks as well for week 13 now of the 2023 season. Appreciate all the great questions we get every single week. You can always hit us on Twitter or on the YouTube comments. Matt and I back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.